Yeah, friends, thanks for tuning in to DeFi-Logic's TA Tuesday. We're live in our Discord server at 10 a.m. Mountain Time every single week. In today's community call, we will review charts for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and for legacy markets, S&P 500, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, dollar, 10-year bonds, and finally, gold. And with that, over to GForce.
Okay, Pepe, thank you. So this is Bitcoin. It's selling off today just like Ethereum is. We looked at this last week, and Friday right here, I had some questions in the Discord of what's the bottom for Bitcoin. And I posted that the next level right here is 67,000, which was the baseline of the triangle I had. So the triangle that I drew back at the first part of June, it did what it's supposed to do. It popped. Okay, so Bitcoin popped after that triangle, which indicates price compression for Bitcoin. It popped up, and then now it's coming back down. So the baseline of that triangle was 67,500, and today it broke that. So I've had this baseline here, this level at 65,500 for a very long time. So I'm expecting it to come down to this level, 65,500. It probably, I don't know if it'll settle there, but it'll probably tag it before it tries to move back up. So that's what we're looking at with Bitcoin. Even though there's still a massive amount of inflows on the ETF, the coin is selling off because basically they're doing an arbitrage. A lot of traders doing an arbitrage, the big traders, that they're buying the ETF, but they're selling the futures. So this right here, the pressure looks like it's coming from them selling off the Bitcoin futures. Moving on to Ethereum. So that arbitrage that's going on is putting pressure on all the crypto at the moment. That's what I've seen right now. Moving on to ETH. ETH is also selling off, as you can see. It was sideways for a long time, all the way back here around the 20th of May. And it's just sold off, continued to sold off. This baseline here I had at 36.94. Obviously, on Friday again, it was dipping down below it, closed below it over the weekend. And on Monday, I tried to hold that line. And now it's just selling off. As you can tell right now, it's at 34.72. So the standard deviation line is curving back down, and you can see where the bands were narrow right here. These are basically the Bollinger Bands, upper bands and the lower bands narrowed in. And it's just at that point, which is today, you knew something was going to happen with those narrow bands, and it's actually sold off pretty well. Moving on to Sol, and you look, we had a peak back here on 21st of May, and then it's pulled back from that peak, hit the standard deviation line, try to pull above that standard deviation line, and then it's just dropped ever since then. And today, of course, like all crypto, it's just selling off. Sol is going in line a little bit more drastically than Bitcoin or ETH, because it had a nice peak right here, like I said, back on the 21st of May. So this whole bottom right here, hitting the 3x lower band, it should come back up and then probably drop back down again, because you can see the standard deviation lines moving lower. That's it with crypto. I'm going to move on to the legacy markets here, and let's go to the standard S&P 500 right here. Filling this gap, it's climbed back up, went past the 5,300 level. It's climbing up today, and it's also at this high point of the upper 2x band. So what everybody's waiting for is the Fed rate announcement, which is tomorrow at 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. That's why it's a little bit flat today. Everybody's hoping for a rate cut this year. Whether that happens or not is the question. So everybody's holding their breath as far as traders go, is what the Fed is going to say tomorrow. So today is just flattened out. Monday was an up day, but today it's flattened out, and we won't see any major action in S&P and most of the markets until Wednesday, which is tomorrow at that point. Moving on to NASDAQ, it's done a pretty good job. It's climbed up. It's hitting an all-time high right now. We're floating around above 19,000 at 19,065 right now. What I'm looking at is this gap right here. This gap will probably be filled in all legacy markets, and this gap, whether it gets filled in soon, this week or next week, it might take 2 weeks, but this gap will definitely get filled in at some point. Moving on to the Dow Jones, which is down 307 points today. Traders are trading off on it because they're thinking that there probably will not be a rate cut this year because the economic numbers are mixed. It's constantly mixed. Stock Saturday article that I wrote up talks about the mixed economic numbers. So those numbers are basically, hopefully the traders are thinking it's going to be a soft landing, but I don't think it's going to be a soft landing at that point. Moving on to the dollar index, you can see that's climbing, it's going up. It climbed past this peak here at 105 and it bottomed out at 104.15. I've had that 104.15 line for a very long time. So it came across as you can see it bottomed out and then it just took off on Friday. And because the bonds have gone up, the interest rate on bonds have gone up. And so it's just climbed at that point. Speaking of bonds, we'll move to the US 10-year yield. And that has moved back up again. It hasn't hit the 4.5%, but it is climbing back up. So you can see right here, it had a low of 4.27, and then it crossed that 4.34% that I had that I thought it would form a double bottom, which this is still considered double bottom, even though it's lower, much lower, which means that the yield is not going to go very high. So if you see this low, which is lower than the first low or the recent low, then you know it's not going to peak. It's not going to get back up to the 4.6. So right now it's still struggling. Again, the federal interest rate announcement tomorrow. So it's holding right now to see where it's at. It might come up to the 4.5%, which I think it will. And then it could go back down, which I think it'll do at that point. Moving on to gold. Gold is looking a little bit less bright as it was. It got up to 2,400. That level there, and then it's just come back down, but it's not going too far below 2,300. So it's hanging in there right now. So we'll see what happens. Of course, geopolitical events, things of that nature could drive it, but it's holding there at 2,300. I don't see it going back up to 2,400 unless we have another geopolitical event, war or a major catastrophe somewhere in those wars. But we still have those wars going on between Ukraine and Russia, which is passé now, unfortunately, as a war, you still have casualties. And then also we have the Israel-Hamas issue that's still going on. Last, I'm going to go to silver. So this is silver. You can see I had a midpoint here, which was at around 30, just above $30. It came back up for a double top and then it's come back down. I thought right here that it wouldn't go any lower. I was thinking maybe I had a missed call here and then it went back up to 31, but then on Friday it tanked. So this double top is locked in. Going below this midpoint is locked in. It still hasn't gone to this baseline of $28.90, but I expect it to hit that baseline at some point. And will this be a firm floor or a firm bottom? I'm thinking it will be. So it might dip below it, do a head fake below it, and then go back up on that. So that's it for TA Tuesdays. So hopefully you had some good information, and I'll turn it back over to Pepe.
That is it for this week. If you're watching on YouTube and you enjoy our content, please give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more crypto, trading, and overall market content. Thanks for joining if you're in the server, and we'll see you next week at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. GM friends.
Join us next week in Discord for TA Tuesday at DeFi-Logic.com.